Salvatore Samuzzo Amatuna, August 3, 1898. November 13, 1925, was an Italian-born American mobster and member of the Gina Brothers in Chicago who served as president of the Union Sicilienne. Early life: Amatuna was born in Pozzello, Sicily in 1898 and emigrated to the United States in the early 20th century, eventually arriving in Chicago's Little Italy. As a teenager, he worked as a messenger for the Gina Brothers, a group of ruthless Sicilian gangsters. He earned a full membership in the Gina Gang on February 21, 1916 at age 17 by murdering Frank Lombardi outside a saloon. Lombardi was a supporter of incumbent Chicago Alderman John Powers, a bitter enemy of the Gina Brothers. The brutal warfare between the Ginas and Powers became known in Chicago as the Aldermen's Wars. Prohibition and the Bloody 19th Ward. Prohibition began in 1920, and Amatuna had already become one of the Gina's leading members. The brothers continued to battle the Powers faction for political control of the 19th Ward. The Ginas began bootlegging operations and became one of the main suppliers of homemade alcohol to the Torrio Capone gang. Amatuna was the enforcer who oversaw production of the gang's numerous alki cookers, and he became the personal bodyguard for Bloody Angelo Gina by the end of 1920. On September 28, a bomb exploded on the front porch of Powers' home. In spite of great damage, no one inside was hurt. Powers suspected that Amatuna was the bomber on orders from the Ginas. For the rest of 1920 and into 1921, Powers stationed armed guards and private detectives around his house as he campaigned against Anthony D'Andrea. Despite frequent bombings, Powers narrowly won the election. Enraged by his defeat, Angelo Gina blamed Paul Labriola, a municipal court bailiff and a Powers supporter, for convincing Sicilian and other Italian immigrants to support Powers. On March 9, 1921, Angelo Amatuna and Gina Lieutenant Frank Don Chick Gambino shot and killed Labriola. Witnesses identified Gina and Gambino, and the two men were charged with murder. However, the case was eventually dropped due to lack of evidence. Amatuna was later a suspect in the murders of Powers supporters Harry Raimondi and Gaetano Esposito. By age 25, Amatuna had several bank accounts and held interests in various legitimate businesses. He earned the reputation of a dandy and would be seen attending operas with Angelo and other gunmen, often wearing expensive diamond studs and cufflinks, and he bought the Bluebird Cafe, a restaurant in Halstead Street in Chicago. He was confident that he was safe in the Bluebird and never wore his two guns there. He once boasted to reporters that, "No one can shoot me in here. This place is full of my friends. Any guy who would hurt me here would be torn apart by my patrons." Later years: by the mid-1920s, the Gina brothers were enmeshed in a vicious gang war with the Northside Gang, a primarily Irish gang run by Jaime Weiss. In May 1925, Angelo Gina was murdered by the Northsiders. Amatuna was in charge of the Gina Gang, and he struggled to keep the organization from disintegrating. He walked into the headquarters of the Union Sicilienne, a powerful fraternal group under mob control, and declared himself president, which upset Al Capone. Capone was a Gina ally, but he wanted to control the Union Sicilienne himself. Death: on the evening of November 13, 1925, Amatuna was preparing to attend the opera Aida at the Auditorium Theater with his girlfriend Rose Pecoraro. He visited a barber shop on Roosevelt Road for a shave and manicure, his usual habit before going out for the evening. Owner Isidore Paul commented on the fact that he was without his bodyguards, and Amatuna replied that he had not been able to reach them that day. Paul applied a hot towel on Amatuna's face when two unidentified men rushed into the barber shop and drew their guns. The barber's screams alerted Amatuna, who quickly ducked behind the barber chair. However, he was shot in the chest twice during the gunfight as the gunman escaped. Amatuna requested at the hospital that a priest marry him and Rosa, but he died before the ceremony was completed. The identities of the men who killed Amatuna were eventually revealed as Northside gang members Vincent, the schemer, Druxy and Jim Doherty, with Frank Gusenberg as the driver. However, no charges were ever brought against them. The noted absence of Amatuna bodyguards Goldstein and Zion has also been questioned, but it is not known whether they were paid off to stay away that night or if they had defected to the Northsiders, as they were both killed shortly after his death. Zion was killed when returning from Amatuna's funeral on November 17, and Goldstein was killed with a shotgun in a drugstore by two unidentified gunmen on November 25. The remaining Jinna brothers later commented that Amatuna's death was inevitable after he began hiring non-Sicilian bodyguards, disregarding tradition. Further reading: Asbury, Herbert, Gem of the Prairie, An Informal History of the Chicago Underworld. New York, 1940. ISBN 0-87580-534-5. Burns, Walter, and the One-Way Ride. The Red Train of Chicago Gangland. From Prohibition to Jake Lingle. Garden City, New York, Doubleday, Doran and Company, 1931. Johnson, Kurt and R. Craig Satter. The Wicked City, Chicago From Kenna to Capone. New York, De Capo Press, 1994. ISBN 0-306-80821-8. Kolber, John. Capone. The Life and Times of Al Capone. New York, De Capo Press, 2003. ISBN 0-306-81285-1. Landesco, John. Organized Crime in Chicago. Chicago, Illinois Crime Survey, 1931. Murray, George. The Legacy of Al Capone. Portraits and Annals of Chicago's Public Enemies. New York, Putnam, 1975. ISBN 0-399-11502-1. References: DeVito, Carlo. Encyclopedia of International Organized Crime. New York, Facts on File, Incorporated, 2005. ISBN 0-8160-4848-7. Kelly, Robert J. Encyclopedia of Organized Crime in the United States. Westport, Connecticut. Greenwood Press, 2000. ISBN 0-313-30653-2. Sifakis, Carl. The Mafia Encyclopedia. New York, De Capo Press, 2005. ISBN 0-8160-5694-3. External links: Late for the Opera, Samuzzo, Amatuna by Alan May Part 2, Chicago's Unione Siciliana, 1920, A Decade of Slaughter by Alan May. Samuzzo, Amatuna, My Al Capone Museum.